And I'm live with Haley here. Hello, Haley.
Hi.
And we're going to go through this Battlestar, but we're not going to go through it like this with this terrible shape at the moment. I'm going to just change that to 2 seconds. Yes, so, yes, you know what to do. Right. So, yeah, we're going to go through. This is refresh the memory of the viewers and Haley. Not myself, because I read it a few hours ago.
One second. I'm trying to get myself situated here.
Okay. And feel free to rip it to pieces in your INTJ way.
Okay. So hold on. You want me to read through it, or I don't know why on my end it's showing quite.
Well, maybe.
Poor quality.
I mean, you could read it out loud if you want, and then stop and say, "Hang on a minute, that doesn't make sense."
Okay. Well, I'm gonna do my best because my quality's kind of locking here.
Ah, right. After a while, it should clear up, especially if I move it up a little bit. Okay. And then it should reconfigure itself. Or I could zoom in a bit.
Yeah, try that. Try doing that.
All right. All right. Oh, I could read it out.
Yeah, that might be better. It's quite blurry on my end.
Right. Okay. Lieutenant Sharon Valeri inexplicably awakens inside the Galactica's tool room and discovers that she is soaking wet and has a G4 detonator in her bag. Before she and Chief Tyrrell can find out what she was doing, an explosion creates a rupture in Galactica's water tanks that leaves the fleet facing a dire water shortage. Although she has no memory for her actions, or of her actions, Sharon fears that she must have been the saboteur. Now, I'm wondering if I go then back to this, I might then see the live chat thing. As the Galactica's there's actually a funny thing. I think it's hilarious about what he was going to do for the plot in terms of the shortage of something else. And it was just so silly, the thing that he wanted, that he entertained the notion of there being a shortage of. It just would have been very comedic if he had actually done that episode that he decided not to do. And I'll show you that in a moment. Okay. As the Galactica's Raptor crews search all nearby star systems for potential water sources, Commander Adama and President Roslin lead an investigation into what caused the water tank explosion and learn that it was started by G4 detonators. They also discover that one detonator is still missing. Throughout the investigation, Tyrrell attempts to hide Sharon's involvement in the accident. During a reconnaissance flight, Sharon locates a water supply on a nearby moon and struggles with her Cylon programming to alert Crashdown of its whereabouts. She also discovers the missing G4 detonator aboard her Raptor and manages to deactivate it. Sharon and Crashdown return to the Galactica's heroes, and Tyrrell continues to protect Sharon by removing the detonator from her Raptor. Back on Caprica, Hilo is also given cause for celebration. He receives a colonial radio signal and starts to believe that he and Sharon may not be the only humans left on the planet. I don't know if that bit was in there. I don't think that bit was in there. About starts to believe.
At the end, remember, they were sitting by the fire and they had like a little walkie-talkie thing.
Yeah.
They got excited over the message, and they had that moment where they both turned to each other like to kiss, but you know, they didn't.
No, because you know, ESFJ gentleman. Right, what have we got here? Right, my channel, will it load? Will I see it? Oh, apparently it's not there, which is very strange. Right, okay, that's odd. It doesn't really matter. Anyhow, if anyone asks any questions, I can't see them, so tough. Right. So, what did you think of the plot?
Well, there's a few things I'm curious about and I want to ask you about.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I thought it was a pretty good episode. I guess I'll just ask now. One of the things that I don't quite understand, and okay, maybe I'm thinking because, you know, when a Cylon dies, they get technically like reborn.
Now here's it. Oh, there's a key bit of information now. Was it in the... Yes, it was in the first one. If there is a ship called a resurrection ship nearby, in order to like pick up the signal so they can get downloaded into a new body.
Okay, well,
And
my question...
And I'll just say something about the resurrection ship. The ship sort of jumps every minute to a new location so that it's very hard to chase. Because it's the thing that allows the Cylons to be almost immortal. Yeah, so...
Okay. Now, as far as... because, when they're looking for water, they're getting in their little kind of hub ships, their little...
Yeah, they're pretty much like a helicopter kind of
Yeah. So my question is that, do they have their own specific ship that they drive all the time, or do they kind of just use whichever one?
Well, they're the sort of ones that they use for sort of carrying troops. They're like the sort of helicopters that can carry troops, and the Raptors have a faster than light drive. Whereas the other ones, the smaller ones, say the one that Starbucks in, is a I should have actually scanned it. They're Vipers.
Okay, but what my question really is why would Sharon, well, granted, Cylonish Sharon, have put the detonator in her own ship? Why wouldn't she have put it? I mean, maybe she was thinking, oh, well, if I die, it's fine, but I'm just going to kill who else is with me, because my inner Cylon is crazy and, agenda.
You're picking up a little bit. Now, of course, from a writing point of view, it picks up the tension of her fighting with it. Maybe the idea was that she blew up something in the ship, and then if she did that, then she would be resurrected. But her programming has gone haywire. But yeah, it was just a way to add extra tension of, oh, there's a device there, a detonator. It might go off. So a little bit of poetic license. I mean, granted, it doesn't look entirely strategically brilliant because it does impede your ability for further sabotage by killing yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you would think so.
Yes. So, oh, here we go. So here's some artwork, and you were asking about what's inside the Cylon ships. I should have the Raiders. You see, there's a bit of a cyborg kind of thing inside the Cylon Raider, and it was built around Katie Sackhoff because of the story where she returns back. So here's a Raptor.
Okay.
Right, so it sort of carries. To be honest, it looks a little bit rinky-dink, a little bit flimsily constructed. And of course, these are the Vipers, and they were identical, very close to the ones in the original series in 1978, which you've seen the miniseries of. Interestingly enough, American pilots in 1978, fighter pilots on their F-16s. The F-16 was called the Fighting Vulcan, and they liked Battlestar Galactica so much they called their planes Vipers. And an interesting thing in Kersey is that he says that artisans care a lot about what things sound like, and they want things to sound cool. So they will call. So that makes me think that makes sense why the pilots of the F-35 want to call it not the Lightning II. They want to call it the Panther. So they're probably artisans. They want cool names: Viper, Panther. Or you might have a guy that goes around in like a rinky-dink car and calls it the Beast.
I actually kind of like the Lightning better than the Panther, but
artisans.
yeah.
Well, it is black in coloration, yeah. Because of it's to do with the radar absorbent material. Anyway, so you were asking me about why they went. Well, one of the reasons she went out on that ship is that she's the pilot of that kind of ship. And now, an interesting thing from behind the scenes is they couldn't afford to have proper space suits for everybody. So sometimes there's people on the ships without helmets on. It's just that they couldn't afford the costumes for them all. And they've talked about this kind of thing on commentary. And they'll say, well, how come sometimes they're all kitted up and sometimes they're not? Well, they just haven't got all the suits. What I will say is the suits are fantastically lit. We've got those little lights on the inside where you can see the whole of their face in the dark. So that has a nice, cool effect. So what I got an idea is if we go through, because there's some extra little details in here. Now, this is the bit that I found hilarious about the idea of this, what he wanted to do initially.
You're talking the writer.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
he toyed with the notion.
Okay. So, in other words,
A paper shortage.
oh my gosh.
Oh my god, this is terrible. We've got no paper.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good thing he didn't go that route.
Yeah.
I probably would have gone from rating this episode quite highly to.
Now, it depends what kind of paper. It may have been like, essential paper, if you get my drift.
You know what? I've read things talking about how, like in a, I don't know, I'm losing words are escaping me. Times of crisis. Yeah.
You need your toothpaste, and you need your small squares of paper.
Absolutely, and diapers too. Interestingly.
Yeah.
So.
Because don't want to go old school and use the old school nappies with diapers with safety pins on. People don't be washing those out these days. Not even the SFJs. So if you want to read through more of this, comment, or I could move on to the next page.
Well, yeah, it's still showing.
Oh, okay, read it through. Right. Oh, yes. There's a little bit. That's just about the director down there. Yeah. Right. Okay. Following its action-packed series premiere, Ronald D. Moore. There is a Ronald B. Moore working on the original Star Wars. That's why I got the D in there. It's not pretentiousness. Envisaged Battlestar Galactica's second installment as a much more character-driven affair. I wanted to do an episode that didn't have a huge sci-fi concept at the center of it, although it really did. He explains, I wanted the characters to face a problem that highlighted their situation and allowed us to play a lot of character beats. I always think the science fiction ideas that have to do with psychology are really cool. Like if someone's a sleeper or someone's been hypnotized or someone's been had like a little program inserted into them and someone's been under the fluence, all of these kind of things, like had a blocked memory that then comes to the surface. Those things are always cool. Go on. Yep.
Oh, well, I was just going to agree with you. I'd rather watch something like that has more of a psychological focus than just battle scenes 24/7. I mean, I get that different strokes for different folks, but yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, and that brings up the point of the originals. This series appealed to a lot of different people because you got the battle scenes, not just for the SPs, but I'll go there, and you've got the sci-fi element, and you've got the drama element. The problem with the prequel Caprica, which shows you how the Cylons were created, is that not a lot of action because there's no wars going on. And also it had the problem of there was a subplot about Haley facepalm. I know it's not directed at me though. There was a subplot about it was almost like a mafia type of situation. Alright. It's okay. It was a mafia type, and it was like, yes, but the fans of The Sopranos are not going to watch it. So it was like not an appropriate like subplot kind of thing, a thread in a science fiction series. So
well, you know what? I actually really appreciated one of the episodes of Game of Thrones, which I'm sorry to switch focus, but
that's okay.
They were just getting ready to head into battle, and then the very next scene was the battle was over. And I was like, yes, I don't have to deal with like 5 minutes of just the same fighting, like just boring. So I really appreciated that. Not that I don't enjoy a good battle scene, but I find that things just become redundant and just, yeah.
For INTJ resemblers, Everything has to be top notch, doesn't it, Haley? Because you are the critics. Yes, Ben, we have good taste. Right. Oh yeah, did I read some? While Moore's concept of a character-driven episode involving a resource shortage remained constant throughout the making of Water, its storyline evolved considerably during its development in Battlestar Galactica's writers' room. After initially toying with making the fleet experience a paper shortage, Moore decided that a water shortage had a far greater dramatic potential. To increase the drama further, he then chose to make the water shortage the deliberate act of sabotage on the part of Sharon Boomer Valeri. Oh, you might be interested in this. These are the ranks on the ship. But you can't really see it very well. It's not really that interesting. Okay, here we go. When I started writing the script, I really decided to jumpstart Sharon's storyline, he reveals. I felt that an accidental water loss was a little unsatisfying, and I decided I needed something darker and more intriguing to pull the audience in. I then sort of blindly went, okay, Sharon did it. And on the spur of the moment, I decided to spin the episode in that direction. That decision really changed Sharon's arc for the entire season, continues Moore. At the start of the season, I intended to reveal things very slowly. Sharon was going to realize something was wrong over a longer period of time, and her relationship with Tyrrell was going to be very solid. But when I got into Water, I decided to speed things up by putting Sharon and her relationship with Tyrrell in a crisis immediately. On reading the script for Water, Grace Park felt both thrilled and daunted by the fact that Sharon was taking center stage in Galactica's first showcase for a specific character. I was really excited when I read the script, but at the same time I was also pretty freaked out because it was so heavy on my character and was very challenging, she recalls. I was fortunate that the episode was so well written, and the director, Marita Krabayak, took me through everything the whole time. The episode really allowed us to delve into what was going on with Sharon, notes Park. She was put in a difficult situation, and there's an internal struggle between her programming and her human side. It was great to play that internal conflict. So what did you think of that aspect of it, Haley, like the whole Sharon storyline?
Well, yeah, I think it's interesting, again, the psychological aspect of, like, having, like it said here, an internal struggle between a character. I just have to make one more comment regarding his idea on the paper shortage. I mean, Ben, would you ever, like, if you're sitting down to write an episode, think, oh, yeah, I mean, sure, water shortage, yeah, food shortage, great, paper shortage, I mean...
I actually think they were they just suggested, because it was almost as if it's the sort of thing they'd never do in Star Trek. And I think they actually meant toilet paper.
Oh,
like, what would happen? I mean, it might be good as a subplot. As a subplot, it might be fantastic where there's a shortage and toilet rolls are going for a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then people start using substitutes. And it's like, what have you done to my book? Or I like this, or a particular writer might have particular kinds of pages. Have you got any Wilkins? Wilkins is pretty good. So it could have been an interesting subplot, but it wouldn't have fit the tone of the series. I mean, you can only go so far with Baltar. And even in this one, he had his moments, Baltar. I mean, he really lifts the series because it is a little bit dark. Park's screen love, Aaron Douglas, saw Chief Tyrrell's attempts to protect Sharon as a great way to explore his character. I enjoyed working on Water, says Douglas. I thought it was a great episode. I particularly liked doing the scene where Tyrrell is in front of the investigation team. He's just so out of his element. Everyone in the room is above him in terms of authority, is not a comfortable public speaker, and he's lying. Water also brings an important moment for Kara Thrace and Gaius Baltar, who begin flirting with each other while playing cards on Galactica. This scene was designed to establish an attraction between the characters. We always thought there was something particularly great about pairing Starbuck with Baltar, notes Moore, who originally outlined his plan for the characters' relationship in the series Bible. Baltar is just everything Starbuck hates. He's not a soldier. I think he is polite. I think that he is polite. What do you think? Do you think he's impolite or a mixture?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call him impolite. I just think that some of his snarky lines are just called for in the situation, like when he was playing cards with her.
Yeah. I mean, usually you could almost say that he's a bit greasy and ingratiating. Hello, Madam President. You look particularly fine today. Or in front of all of these lovely people. So, so he's almost sarcastically polite. How about that?
Yeah, I would say so.
Right. Baltar is just everything Starbuck hates. He's not a soldier. He's polite. He's a coward. He's a womanizer, and he's a liar. He's much the wrong person for her, and that's why he was so perfect. She would end up with him. Now, that was the thing that James Callis said, that everybody else thought that his character was a baddie, but he wanted him to turn him into this comic guy where, and I wrote on here that James Callis said he wanted to be the person who looked like he didn't know which button to push on the machines. Because he said in science fiction, everybody looks like they know what button to push. And so he comes across as a bit nervous. And so that made me think sometimes he's a bit more INTP than ENTP. And then sometimes he leans more ENTP.
Yeah, he does play the nervous card really well. I'll give him that.
Yeah, so definitely sexual instinct in terms of Enneagram. And I reckon in some kind of NTP. Now, he's got a conscience, so that makes me lean towards INTP.
Now, hold on. They're going to call him impolite, but Starbuck is totally,
Yeah, I know, exactly. That's a little bit weird. I would say that's a typo.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right. Yeah, because Starbucks, ESTP, and in the miniseries, permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. You're a bastard. Right. He's much the wrong person for her, and that's why it was so perfect she ended up with him. In keeping with the show's commitment to ongoing character development, Water also addresses Lee's feelings following the destruction of the Olympic carrier in the preceding episode 33. But the nature of Lee's flashback was altered during the episode's post-production in response to changes made to 33. Originally, when Lee opened the locker, he was actually going to be seeing the faces of the people he had killed aboard the ship, reveals Bamba. Okay, how would he know that?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, so I put there, that's 2NF. It's like, you need to know logically what they look like. I mean, and so, I mean, Lee sort of comes across as a little bit idealist. And then when I watched the episode again in order to take the VLC snaps, when Adama was talking about he doesn't like his officers to speculate, he just wants the facts, that sort of made me lean more towards ESFJ than ENFJ. Because I do think he's some kind of feeling dominant. What have we got here? Originally, when Lee opened the locker, he was going to see the faces of people. And then Bamba said that's why he had such a strong reaction. But they changed that to a memory in the ship and him pulling the trigger, which I not sure is as powerful. Well, it's got to be logical, Lee. So get a grip. Right. Lee later discusses his concerns with the ship's destruction with President Roslin, who asked him to run military. And I remember your reaction at that time is you thought that that was a little bit of a douche move by Roslin, sort of like putting the guilt back on him. Well, we don't know if it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, and then she slipped in the little piece of paper, like, oh my gosh.
I'm remembering about it, Olympic carrier.
Yeah, like, you know what you can do with this? Oh, man.
Right, you've written down my mistake. The thing I'm concerned about. Okay.
Gosh, that would have really ticked me off.
Yeah, but he did react to it. I mean, at least the actor played it like he reacted to that. Thinking, interesting move there, Madam President. Uh,
She seems to have her off moments.
yeah, she's
And
someone.
then,
She yeah.
well,
Hey,
no,
go
no,
on.
no. I'm just thinking about the when Baltar was locked up and she came in and oh,
Yeah,
trust your feeling, and he's like, yeah, sorry, madam, but I don't really feel like being executed because of your gut feeling. Yeah, she
yeah.
definitely has her moments.
She sort of goes in between INFP and ENFJ. But the thing is, though, some of that is the role that she's in, because she's in a directive role. And so this is an interesting thing about Kersey temperament theory, where sometimes you have to think about the type, and then sometimes the role that they're in that forces them to act in certain ways.
Right.
Uh, this
Also,
about yeah, go on.
isn't she quite heavily medicated?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, whatever. I get the impression she's like an NF
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit manipulative as
Yeah,
well.
come on. Trust your gut feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and being manipulative isn't exclusive to NFJs, but that is an aspect. That is a thing. Guiding people, and because they're doing it for their own good. Remember, they're manipulating people for their own good. Um, for the good of the cause.
Right.
If they're unhealthy, what's good for me is good for them. Right. Natural development for the characters. I always had seen Lee as a person being closer to Laura than to his father, and I thought it would be interesting if she asked him to be her advisor, he notes. I also put them in a natural triangular conflict with the Dharma, which I liked. I think Lee is a little bit idealist, but it's sort of, he's not sort of written, like, it's almost like for the needs of the plot that he sort of ends up like that, because otherwise he's not a very interesting character. Uh, Water posed several specific challenges to Battlestar Galactica's visual effects team. Yes, in the early days, it was very difficult to do CGI water. The show's CGI artists had to devote a lot of time to producing the shot of Galactica's water supply erupting into space, as it required the creation of a believable water flow and a convincing interactive shadow. So the actual special effects of the Cylons, they look a lot better in 2009 than in 2004, just because the computing power had moved on so much.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they did the final one, which was called The Plan, which sort of goes back to the beginning, and as the writer said, Jane Epson, it gives you answers to questions you didn't know you had. And that is true for The Plan. And it actually has a bit, it actually gives you a little bit of extra information about what's going on with Sharon right
Okay.
here in that, yeah. About who's the one who's controlling her and that kind of thing. The show's CGI artists had to devote a lot of time to producing a shot of the Galactica's water supply erupting into space, as it required the creation of believable water flow and a convincing interactive shadow. Gary Hutzel also worked closely with the show's set builders and CGI modelers to create the inside. Hang on a minute, it might be better if I showed it on screen. CGI modelers to create the inside of the water tank aboard the Galactica. The water tank was a one-walled set with a ramp leading away from it. Everything else was virtual, explains Hutzel. It's a good example of what can be done with the virtual sets, especially when you make it dark, because then you're hiding any kind of like cartoonishness in the CGI. As the first episode to primarily focus on one character and to be directed by someone other than Michael Reimer, Water ultimately represented an important learning experience for Battlestar Galactica's makers. It also succeeded in establishing Sharon's central dilemma and launching her arc for the season. I thought Water worked well, states Moore. Sharon's struggle is intriguing because she's not aware of it. She's carrying out orders at a subconscious level, and she doesn't understand why she's doing things. She's unaware that she's a Cylon, and the idea that she might be a Cylon really scares her. It's an interesting psychology to watch.
And just to ask, up to this point, if someone's watching this without, I mean, if you've never seen any other episodes past this, you have no idea if she really is a Cylon, right?
Well, it sort of says so in the opening credits. It sort of comes up and it says, some are programmed to think they are human. Dun, 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 there are many copies.
Okay.
So it's sort of like the intro sequence is
Yeah,
pretty
but
good
I mean,
for
like
setting up the premise.
if you scroll back, like, okay, I'm looking at all the intro sequences here.
I'll just go back. I think that's the right one. Oh, that's not the right one. Let's rotate the image. I'll go here. Yes.
Well, I was just looking at the one where Baltar and what's her face, number 5.
Right, I'll just go back. They feel, they look, they evolved.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just supposed to take what's written on the screen and go with it, I guess
Yeah.
someone who wouldn't know any better would assume that both those characters and Sharon are Cylon.
Yeah. I mean, both the Sharons are Cylons.
Right. I know, but I'm saying to someone who doesn't know who's a Cylon and who's not, they've never seen any other episode. They're just going by what they can see here, and they're saying some are Cylon, some, whatever.
Yeah.
But in that instance, they're showing a picture of the blondie chick, number 5, and Baltar, and then they switch over to Sharon. So, I mean, I guess you can say, well, yeah, they're implying that all these characters shown here are Cylon.
Yeah.
But I mean, how can we really be sure that that's who they're talking about? But yeah, I guess so. It's pretty straightforward with Sharon, but okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
Also, you got this balance between casual viewers and people who've been watching it all the way through. And so you have to put enough in to keep us hooked. Like the arc plot.
Okay.
Is what they term it. And so, I mean, I think this is a better intro sequence than in Game of Thrones. All that flashy CGI, it doesn't. If I was doing Game of Thrones, I would have like portraits and show who's related to whom. Like, this is this family, this is who plays this person, all of these kind of things, and I would update it every season rather than to have an award-winning opening sequence that was basically just to get an award rather than to have proper exposition. I like it when it's like name of the character and who they're played by. The premise of the series. Like Babylon 5 would be, it is the year 2263, in the year of the Shadow War. Captain such and such, played by such and such. There we go, there are many copies. And they have a plan. There we go. Oh, I'm going to let this do its thing. So this is going to speed round. I might... do you want it to speed round at 1 second per frame or 2 seconds per frame?
I'd say 2.
Right then.
I think we're gonna probably be pausing it for some anyway, so.
Right. Now there are 800 of these. Yeah, I think Helo's pretty ESFJ. So, folks, if you can't find the series, this is probably the next best thing. Feel free to comment on whatever you see. Make them quick, though.
Yeah.
It's almost like doing a live commentary. Where you imagine if you're watching it and you're sitting in your VVD pauses. And then they start going back. It could be like that might actually be quite surprising on some DVDs where there's a moment where it starts rewinding. They have taken control of my DVD player.
So, do we later find out who writes Cylon on her mirror?
In the plan, yes.
Okay.
In 2009. And you also find out some information about the Shelley Godfrey thing in 6 Degrees of Separation, like how she was able to disappear so quickly.
Okay.
course, when it says it gives you answers to questions you didn't know you had, that's not taking you into account because you probably already have those questions because you question everything.
Yeah, but I mean, there's always room to miss something, I guess. Now,
Yeah, every now and then.
something that I don't quite find realistic is you should always have your arms room guarded with
Yes, they bring
something.
that up. Lax, as said, safety standards have been a little bit lax.
Yeah, but I mean that. I mean, yeah, have other things that are lax, but your arms room, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I was saying, I mean,
not on
this
my
was a
ship.
guy who was about to retire, and he runs a bit of a loose ship. He's a bit
Yeah.
of an ESFJ, and he's probably thought, well, I trust my people, and but yeah, that is a little bit slack. He would say, I can't spare the people to have somebody stood there. But you're right. But it did have like a control panel on it, and somebody had to like put security codes
Yeah,
in.
but yeah, I know. I feel like there could have been something more done.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, someone's still got to go through a big sturdy door and have the correct code. So pretty much only an officer would be able to get in there. So I mean, I might even ask you a further question then, Haley. And this comes from a Roman historian. Who guards the gods?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I agree with that.
I was thinking when I initially saw this, I was thinking like it was him being disciplined so he doesn't get drunk. But actually, I just realised what it is. It's because he doesn't want to run out of booze.
Yeah. I thought it was him being disciplined also. Like, I have so much, let me ration it up into days or something, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
But they leave it a little bit unclear. So maybe it's a little bit of both because he is a functional drunk and he's great under pressure. So he's he's almost like a cartoon version of an ESTP in that sense.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Oh, so, someone's not an ENTP. I don't think Lee is ESTP. Yeah, I don't think any NFJ would say that either. Leave the second guessing to the historians. Maybe unless they're... although they might say it to make somebody feel better, but that's not really a typical thing. Yeah, that kind of macho stuff there. A man accepts his decisions. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
A bit SJ. This was a bit... you were amused by this bit. He plays that character well. Probably an INTP. There's all the stuff. You've got nice hair. It said it to Joella. Here we go.
That actually wouldn't really bother me as long as they were clean and.
Yeah, but you're INTJ though, Haley.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I just did that in order to have that bit about him being a bit awkward and a bit INTP-ish.
Okay.
I mean, the way he acted there, like, you know, like him being like soft in his interaction style, makes me think either ISFJ, INTP, INFP. She knows what's going on. Yes, some of the names, like they'll say Sagittarius, Virgon, all of these things. There's a reason why they put all of that in, and it's sort of connected to, as you know, the star signs, but also Greek mythology comes into it as well. Especially towards the end of the season. The season's only 13 episodes. And then what they did with season 2 is they broke it into 2 halves of 10. So it gave the writers about a 3-month break, which helped a lot. Season 3 was 20 episodes all in one lump, and I think it got a little bit draining in the middle. But then it ended up really good. Although some might argue otherwise. But I thought the final episode of season 3, when it happened, was fantastic. And then I had to read a comic book afterwards that sort of explained the logic of it, of what happened in the final episode of season 3.
I'm not sure if I'm a little bit delayed.
Do you think you're missing a couple of the frames?
I think I'm just a little bit behind you.
Yeah. I'll just pause it at the moment.
Okay,
Do you think you're getting every frame?
I'm honestly not sure.
Well, I mean, does the dialogue seem to flow, or do you think it looks like little bits have been missed out?
There was at one point with the president, and what's his face tells her like, oh well, no, he's just trying to make you feel like more presidential, and I thought that was kind of sweet of him. Yeah. But I don't remember seeing the frame in here. But I mean,
I'll change the frame rate to.
Maybe it did, and it's just on my end.
Yeah, what I usually do is I set the frame rate to 3 seconds. If the flipping thing will stay there. 3 seconds, because usually that gives enough time. It should move on.
Have you ever seen? There was a really cool video that I got to see with someone who made a vacuum chamber, and they put like a beaker in there with water droplets on the side, and they brought the pressure down like to almost zero. I mean, really, I guess what is capable here to mimic conditions in space, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And what happened with the water? I mean,
did it boil?
No, well, which I wish they would do something like that, like put a substantial amount of water in the beaker. All they did was like they had a beaker with water droplets sticking to the glass, and they put that in there. But the water just dissipated.
So, for example, if you're up in a high mountain, water will boil below 100 degrees Celsius. Probably around 70. Well,
the reason I brought that up is because, and I understand there's only so much they could do at the current point in time with their CGI, but I mean, what is purported to happen to water? Yeah, I'm looking at the frame right now.
Oh, I see what you mean. You think it's sort of gone into sort of steam as it went into...
Well, yeah, steam.
More steamy, yeah.
I guess technically, like, if you take a drop of water, it would just, like, implode to the extent of not being able to physically see it with the eye. And it would be, like, instantaneous because of just how immense, like, that...
But it's also cold, though. It's also cold, so...
Yeah. Okay.
We'll have to Google it, see what would happen to water in space. Would it freeze or would it vaporize because of the vacuum, as you said?
It'd be cool to do an experiment like that. Get a little vacuum chamber.
Well,
regulate the temperature inside. Stick a beaker in there, and
if you email the International Space Station, maybe you can get that done before it gets closed down.
Yeah.
If only they took requests.
Yeah. Too bad. Too bad. I can't have them. Get on a little video chat with me and then turn the phone around and show me their lovely window and all that's outside of it.
I
Anyway,
I do think that would be a factor because, as you know, with vaporization, you got two factors: temperature and pressure. So, I mean, you can get ice in space because comets are mostly ice. And when they go near the sun, they sort of vaporize a little bit. And so then you get the tail.
So I guess my question now, which I probably shouldn't even go here, how would a ship propel itself in space?
Well, they in science fiction, they sort of acknowledge the problem with
yeah, there's a little bit of a problem
with the speed of light. And so they'll just say, we will acknowledge the problem and call it a faster than light drive. And quite a few series rely on, and Star Wars did it as well with the Millennium Falcon, where they will do it like you're jumping. And so you have to have all your coordinates right in order to jump to the correct place and not land in the middle of a star. So what actually happened is they did a rescue attempt later in the series. And because the raptors can jump, they had a raptor and it got the coordinates wrong and it materialized inside a mountain. And everyone died because all the matter was mingled up with the mountain. So it at least puts these little bits in where it's like, well, if you're going to jump instantaneously to another position, then you can...
Yeah, I get
now,
what you're saying.
I personally think it can be done by huge amounts of gravity curving space.
Okay, well, I'm more talking about, like, I don't know the names of the ships, but like what they were seeking out water in, the movement in those, how that would be explained.
Yeah,
because they're not necessarily jumping. Well, they're not jumping. I mean, it's like they're being propelled or moved along by some.
They sort of tootle along, unless they jump. So yeah, I mean, it's like I mean, you'd be a good person to be in their writers' room and like critique all their. Oh, I want to have a word with your scientific advisor.
Yeah.
Is he the NASM equivalent of scientific advisors? or is he the Brad Schoenfeld equivalent of scientific advisors? Or do you just ignore what he says because it doesn't work as a plot? But yeah, I mean, they always have to run up against this problem in science fiction, where otherwise it would take ages to get anywhere. Everyone would have to go into stasis. I mean, they did that in Alien, where for these long journeys, they put somebody in stasis. Okay, I'm going to go in stasis for 200 years. Everybody I know is going to be dead. And then we end up at the place that we want to end up at.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, Ben, what would you rate this? Out of 10. Ooh. 10 being the best. Really, you have to think that hard.
But yeah, because the Battlestar Galactica, they're still pretty good episodes.
Well, no. I mean, okay, yeah. But
this is like,
when you ask me what I'm going to rate it, I really don't have that much to base it off of.
Right, okay, for me, this is a 7, but based on the standards of Battlestar Galactica. Now, Jeff does his reviews based on outright enjoyment, but I sort of base it relatively. So, for example, when we were reviewing Homicide, I sort of said it's good for a Homicide episode.
See, I actually agree with both, and I think both would play a part in my, what I would give it. So I would also say 7.
Yeah. It's sort of like the default. Yeah. It's like, it's pretty solid. A little bit, I mean, to me, the actual thing with the water, searching for water and the explosive charges, that wasn't that exciting to me. But all the stuff with her and the psychology and her being a sleeper agent and Baltar he gives it an extra point or two. Like, I mean, the way he played this scene with Katie Sackhoff later on. Of course, this one's in
Yeah,
the. Yeah,
and
go
you
on.
know what? I read it in the review that they were flirting, but you know, of course, it's never stated. But I was gonna say, like, I feel like there's some sparks going between them.
Yeah, and they played it subtly. And
Mm-hmm.
Katie Sackhoff is such a good actress. I mean, if you see more of this series, you will be amazed. I mean, she's as good as he is. Those two are right at the top. Like Adama, he's got such gravitas. That guy, Edward James Olmos. Mary McDonald's okay. He's good, but like the top tier, Adama and Katie Sackhoff, and then you probably got these two next, and Callis as well, and like that sort of a tier below. But of course, Callis is in a tier of his own when it comes to humor. Oh yeah, he gets nervous here. He's like, he's smart, but he's not as smart as he makes out, and he's trying to make himself appear useful. And then just randomly having a sexual moment in his head. And they talked about how nice that place was, where they shot all of these scenes. It's like this amazing bachelor pad.
Yeah. I guess my concern would be, what's my closest neighbor? I mean, I don't mean to, I really enjoy my privacy. And
Yep.
when I'm out on my balcony or whatever, it's always in the back of my mind. Because, like, walking around here, I've seen quite a few people with binoculars just, like, looking up. And I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, that's going to be... You might want to put some screens up, maybe that
Yeah,
go
I do.
one-way screens.
Yeah, I absolutely.
Yeah, and then that will serve them right. If you have mirrored screens, that might be a little bit tricky though. If you put with the position of the sun, because you might
Right.
like get shine on other people.
Uh-huh.
There we go. To tell you the truth, there are significant problems. Implementing a silent detection method that I use. Look at these little things that he does. Like I say, I do say when people watch James Callis, watch him like a hawk. Do not blink at the little things he does and how he delivers things, because he is half taking the piss. And he is in like a different program from everybody else. Like these little like, and then you got that voice in his head that he doesn't want people looking over him too much. So yeah, I think NTP for him. Do you really want them snooping around, watching your every move? Maybe it'll be a woman. You could find her secret beauty.
Never mind.
There's somebody they have on the internet. They have made compilations where it's just Head Six and Baltar, and it's like, and again his facial expressions. I mean, he really adds something to this series, where because otherwise it's a pretty dark series. Most of humanity has been wiped out. They're on the run. They're pretty much never on the offense. So you've got a lot of what Robert McKee would call forces of antagonism. And when you're really up against it and there's greater obstacles, it creates more suspense and more drama. Whereas in Star Trek, there's a tendency for them to be crude, piss on everybody because they are the best, the humans.
Mm-hmm.
And the aliens tend to be one note. So, for instance, the Vulcans sort of represent one trait, logic. The Klingons, one trait, aggression, and so it's like they're not as dimensional as the humans.
Mm-hmm.
And you always and it's like, well, the Terran Federation. It's run by humans, and all these species are like lesser species. They're almost like the vassals of the humans, and the humans are the ultimate. Whereas in, say, Babylon 5, they were not the most advanced at all. I think her performance, I think Sharon's, Grace Park, I don't put her in the top 10. most of the time she's good, but every now and then there's a little like crack in her performance, like a false note from a singer.
Okay.
And I think you were saying here that you picked up on the that he's sweet on her.
Yeah.
If you'd have been a Cockney commando, oh, you're all right, darling. You can keep the book.
Yeah.
I never lend them out. It's a present. You go tootle off and read that, darling.
Well,
And when you're
it's
good and ready,
mutual.
you can come back and give me a good seeing too.
Yeah. Hey.
But he's not that kind of guy. He's not like an ESTP Cockney kind of older guy. I apologise to any Londoners who are watching. Oh yeah, here's a bit where he's talking to him, and then he says, "Is that a card game?" And he loses interest in. Here we go. What? It's like no time for guys. I once did a joke with Jonathan that I might introduce him on the channel as, here is Jonathan, the token male. Like again, like she's very good at comedy. She doesn't get a lot to do, but she like puts these little bits in. And she now does a show called Longmire, where she plays a copper, where she plays a police officer. Like he was going to get some stuff for him from that pocket. That was a nice little touch. He looks up to him so much that he looked like he was going into that pocket to give him some money.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I'll be quiet.
Right.
Well, we make sure we take all this in. Now, him being interested in the card game and like that's a little bit more ENTP-ish. So he sort of goes in between the two. Now, that actually might make a character more interesting than if they were like solidly one type.
Mm-hmm.
But because he's going between the two of them, it's like, oh, there's a little bit of a dimension in there.
Mm-hmm.
So
is it just coincidence, or is the whole Starbucks blonde, other chick's blonde, he just likes his blondies, or what?
that would just happen. The actresses just happen to be.
Okay.
Although, in the case of Thingy Dyed Her Hair, Trisha Helfer, who played, and she actually. Oh, you have to forgive me when I say this. Arguably, she looks better when she has her natural hair color, because in these scenes she's actually wearing a wig.
Oh, okay.
So it's a little bit too. There's just personal preference, because there's another version of that model called Natalie, and she sort of wears her natural hair, and I thought she looks a little bit nicer in that one.
Okay.
It's just a particular kind of, but it's just personal preference with. Because we talked about this before, whereas I prefer more the golden versus the platinum kind. Because I like that golden colour. Oh, yeah, so I like these helmets. Wait, lights. Here we go. I'll be quiet.
Yeah, I agree.
What about the helmets?
Yeah, about the helmets. Yeah. I think it's a nice aspect to them.
She just plays it really well, like she's impressed by Baltar's card playing. And she doesn't make it too obvious. Such a good actress. And of course, now she's in her late 30s. Because again, 2004, she was 23 in 2003. There you go. The sarcastic politeness in front of these.
And those subtle sparks.
Yeah, but of course, the thing is, though, anyone can win a game if they've got like 4 aces or all the colours. It's winning when they've not got that great a hand.
Right.
And also the setting it all up as well. Because if you only play when you've got a good hand, and if you never bluff, you have to bluff in order to make the other people doubt. Because otherwise they'll know, oh, he only plays when he's a good hand.
Right.
So you've got to sort of like lose. Here we go, this bit with the... I thought that was good. where he like flexed his muscles. And there, I have just been played. But really, he just had a really good hand. But so some people in poker might fake a tell. It like so in order to give the impression. So this is where the expression double bluff comes from, where it's something that looks like a bluff but isn't. Now, and a lot of people, they get mixed up between a double bluff and a bluff. So if you're playing poker and you give the impression that you're bluffing, and the other person thinks, this guy's bluffing. Oh no, I've got a good hand. That's the double bluff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm still stuck on why she. Sorry, change of focus here. Why Sharon put Cylon Sharon put it in her own ship.
Well, in order to make the episode more exciting.
Yeah, I know, but
I used to get hung up on these things as well. I used to get really upset by plot holes.
I mean, they could have played it to where Sharon still had the whole Cylon thing, you know, like, we found water. Oh, no, we didn't. Oh, yeah, we did. No, we didn't. You know, having that fight in her head.
Yeah.
And then have another ship with some more buddies off looking for water somewhere else. And then the bomb in their ship and them dealing with the bomb there.
It makes it a little bit better when you've got it gets better because of the plan. You get extra information in the plan, which is the final TV movie that they did.
Okay.
So you do get extra information, and the plan is an excellent thing. It really is good, the plan. It's just brilliant how the plan revisits scenes and gives you new information.
Okay.
Really good.
So I'm guessing that's a pretty long show that they did.
It's about 90 minutes. It's a 90-minute TV movie.
That's not too bad.
And it gives you more information on that woman, the other 6 that turned up in 6 Degrees of Separation, Shelley Godfrey. It gives an explanation why she can't push him out of the stall when really she's got the strength to throw him across the room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that is weird because the way I'm seeing it, it's slightly slower than the one that I'm sharing it from the other Ben. But
I think I'm a little bit behind you.
Yeah. I'm glad my hairstyle's not like Soul Ties. I think it needs to go with the baldy cut, to be honest. I think it was meant to be toilet paper as a shortage.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
I mean, what other kind of paper would, yeah.
It's like the ISTJs. Yeah. But again, that would have been all right as a subplot, but like maybe as a 3rd or 4th subplot. And it's like, and we're running very short. And we're very short on toilet paper. Okay, you see to it because we don't want riots.
But then you'd have to create the whole story behind Sharon placing the bombs, like in the supply room, and why just that area. Like there would be so many questions. Like,
yeah, that would be weird. That would be crazy. Sharon blows up the area that contains all the toilet rolls. So that would be on like the spoof version of it.
Mm-hmm.
We've lost all the deluxe double thickness. Gives them 1 piece. Mind how you go.
Yeah.
I think I remember that in another series where they gave them like a couple of pieces and then said, "Mind how you go." I think it might have been in Porridge or something. Because that kind of thing in prison, like a cigarette or a nice bit of toilet roll, becomes almost currency.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. See, yeah, this is where I'm on the screen that shows I'm getting a signal. I can't
Yeah.
decode it. It means there's someone's in the military, still alive, kicking here on Caprica. Yes, they get all excited, and then they have that little moment.
I mean, the good. I mean, the acting's good there in terms of the looks that they give each other, and also the lighting is good as well. Not that one in particular, but this one is pretty good lighting because we talked quite a bit about lighting, haven't we? We
Yeah,
like
sure
we like good
Caravaggio.
lighting. Caravaggio, the best, fantastic with his lighting. Better than Rembrandt. Yeah.
And we speculate that it's only because he's lazy a little bit.
Yeah, he doesn't want to do the background. So yeah,
I don't really blame him.
Yeah, but the thing is, Velázquez in different Spanish pronunciations, but in Spain it's called Velázquez. He didn't paint backgrounds either, and he was an amazing portrait painter. And I mean, he would paint dwarves in the Spanish royal court with dignity and all of these other things. And he actually did this amazing painting where he put himself in the painting, and you had the royal family sort of reflected on a mirror in the background. It's an amazing piece of, and he had like the children of the king, and it was very interesting. How he put himself in the portrait, and he was like, and this was at a time when the King of Spain had an enormous amount of money from South America, and I think he had like 40,000 pieces of artwork, and and he got on very well with Velázquez. So stop thinking about it. Yeah, I'm gonna guilt trip you.
Yeah, gosh, man, I would have been so mad.
Yeah, you see that night lane, because because the thing in socionics is that INTJs don't like ENFJs because the ENFJ is their supervisor.
Okay.
And so you're sort of reacting against maybe a little bit of the ENFJ-ish manipulative tactics that gets on your nerves.
Yeah, manipulation I don't have time for at all. So, slip me a little piece of paper. Oh, yeah, here, you can, this is to start you off. Yeah, fuck you, man. To remember and learn from the mistakes, even if they can't admit to them publicly. Where's the little paper slip?
It's like, I'm not forgotten about it. And I like that reaction from him. Yeah, so this actor's... The only problem with this actor is he can't do strong emotion. I see three kinds.
Those are add to your burdens, but here you go.
Yeah. I mean, there are some people who are just so bad they can't even open a door realistically, or pick up a cup, or stand realistically. And it's like, how did they get cast? They're not particularly good looking. But and then there are those people who are limited, and especially with guys, and especially when you watch older stuff like The Twilight Zone, they act fine until there's a point where they have to show strong emotion and they can't act it. And it's usually because they've not been taught properly in terms of using your own stuff, your own baggage, emotion memory, where you channel a real powerful memory from your own past and bring that up. And then it appears real. And Marlon Brando was the first one to actually be taught this sort of modern method of acting. Slightly different from method acting, but it's using your own baggage to act. Other people just have a fantastic imagination and are naturals, but technique can help a lot. So in general, American acting tends to be better than British acting because of the difference in technique. A lot of British people are taught almost from the outside in, where they're sort of like on stage with Shakespeare. It's like how to have a good voice, how to show things in your voice. And so they get very good on a technical level. So you've been watching Game of Thrones. A lot of the English actors and actresses in there have a great voice. Now, what do you think of the actress that plays Daenerys?
Here, are you okay? Okay. Honestly, I'm sorry.
He's being a 90J. That's fine.
You okay? Okay, yeah.
It's over soon. It's over in about 3 minutes.
Yeah. What do I think of the actress that plays Daenerys? Honestly, I think physically, yeah, great, but I don't necessarily. Yeah, I don't really like her for some reason.
What about, say, her voice? So marks out of 10 for her voice, and then marks out of 10 for her eyes.
Well, you know what? I know you often comment on stuff like this, like how expressive someone is with their eyes, but I feel like I just don't really pick up on that when I'm watching a movie.
Right.
I don't know. I guess when I'm watching something, I'm also I'm going back and forth to what I'm seeing and what's going on in my head. So I probably will miss a lot of details. So when I'm trying to say, oh, I like this actor because of this, or I don't like them because of this, it's rarely because of how expressive or not expressive, they are with their eyes. So I can't tell you as far as Daenerys is concerned. I have no idea.
To me, she sounds good.
Okay.
But her eyes, she's always got the same startled expression on her face. And I don't like that. I think her facial acting is not very good at all. Whereas somebody like the actress that plays Cersei Lannister, Lena Headey, I think she's really good.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I agree.
That is a tough character to play, Cersei Lannister. A lot of people are limited in that program. The guy that plays Bronn, the sellsword, he's good. Limited ones. The one that plays Alfie Woodard, who plays not Alfie Woodard. Alfie Woodard is actually a good actress, but no, the guy that had his nads cut off. That guy. Do you remember that character?
I can't. Ben, I suck with
Yeah,
names.
it's one of those like kind of Viking kind of things. But that character, like Theon Greyjoy.
Yes.
That actor, he's not the best.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well, it's a massive digression, but Thingy was good. Charles Dance. Remember as the guy that was in as like the patriarch of the Lannisters. Tall guy, blonde hair, older guy in his 50s.
Okay, yeah.
The dwarf, Tyrion, shot him with a crossbow.
Yes.
That actor and that character and the power that he had. And his first scene is like cutting up a pig or like a stag or something. And it's like loads of force going on there and presence.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about in an interview how he was like shown for about 40 minutes how to do it. But to me, that's really good extroverted sensing, having that presence about you. Like you're an older guy and you're like just having all this presence coming off you. So that good acting. Nicholas Coster-Waldau, who plays Jaime Lannister, he's good. And I think he'll kill Cersei towards the end of season 8. And then he'll kill himself. And then everyone will realise he's a great guy. Because he saved everybody's ass by killing the Mad King. Because the Mad King was going to burn down King's Landing with all that wildfire stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still feel like there's some elements of manipulation in him.
Yeah, he's a bit... I think initially I thought ESTP for him, and then I realised ESFP. Like, he had this wonderful speech, and I might have showed it to you before, where he talks about loyalty to whom? Loyal to your father, loyal to the king, loyal to the people.
Mm-hmm.
If you stand up, if you honour one thing, you betray your honour to the others.
Right.
So, and he went back to rescue Brienne, didn't he? Character in action, choices.
Mm-hmm.
He's done a lot of things not to his own benefit, but because he felt they were the right thing to do. And it's been talked about in interviews that he loves Cersei more than Cersei loves him. Because as soon as he's away, Cersei goes bonking somebody else.
Yeah.
And he doesn't. He only has eyes for Cersei.
What
So yeah.
Tangled web we weave.
Right. So those are the good ones. I give it 7, and you give it
7 also.
Right. So then, folks, that's it for now. Unless you want to say something else, Haley, except apart from guard your small arms locker people.
Wait, except for what?
Guard your small arms locker people.
Yeah, exactly.
You had to put a code in though. There we go.
Well, okay, no. You remember in I don't think it was this episode. Well, no, it wasn't obviously.
I got an idea. Well, one thing they could have done is require two people to put their own personal code in at the same time, because that's usually what they do in the guys in the silos with the nuclear missiles.
Mm-hmm.
They make sure there's two guys in there, and they both do it at the same time in case one goes nuts.
Yeah, or have some sort of a database that like logs who logged in and have some sort of like a camera around showing like this is the person actually logging in with their name at this time on this date, and show like who's going in what time.
Yeah,
which I guess you can still get into the system and like screw around on the system and manipulate things that way, but
apparently
try.
And apparently the SSBN, so these are the nuclear-powered submarines that fire the intercontinental ballistic missiles. They're actually set up so the people on the submarine can't fire the missiles. They only go to a certain location, and then they receive a signal, and then they fire them. Because otherwise, the submarine captain could go do lally.
Right, yeah.
So, we have digressed. I'll give it 7, you give it 7. Goodbye from me.
Bye from me.
All right, then.